and welcome to a brand new episode of my podcast, Podcast Racing. Today, I am going to be talking about just favorite year in movies in general. I feel like there are just certain years where so many like great films have come out. There are a couple of years in mind where I can remember where it was just like really good for movies. And with me today, I have my good friend MaryAnn. Once again, how are you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
Been very busy, honestly. I haven't done a podcast in a while, but I'm really look excited to doing a podcast today, and thank you for joining me once again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I guess this time I'll go first. Like I said before, there are some years where that have just been really great for cinema. It's gonna be kind of hard to judge like what is, even though the title of this episode is "What is the best year for movies?" It's kind of unfair, I guess, of us to judge because when we're judging all of cinema, obviously a lot of like I don't know about you, but a lot of like older movies I still haven't seen, and a lot of the
Yeah.
films that I've seen in my lifetime were films that were current or popular at whatever age or time in my life I was at. So I've seen a lot of newer movies, but not a lot of older movies. So I guess a more appropriate title for this episode should be "What is our favorite year of movies?" Not necessarily what is the best year in movies, but
Yeah.
to us, it's the best year for movies. So just a
Right.
disclaimer for those of you listening. I guess I'll start by most recent first, and then go kind of backwards in time.
Okay.
2019 was such a phenomenal year for film. I think that most people can agree that just 2019 in general was just absolutely amazing for cinema. There were so many films that came out that had a very common theme of rich versus poor. You had
Mhm.
Parasite, Knives Out. I haven't seen Ready or Not yet, but Ready or Not,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
what's it called? Yeah, there were just so many great films that came out. Marriage Story, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Irishman, Uncut Gems, Booksmart, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Little Women, Toy Story 4, Avengers Endgame, Lighthouse, The Farewell. Like there are so many like absolutely amazing films that came
Mhm.
out in 2019, and I've only mentioned like some of the more like popular ones that came out. There are other
Right.
movies were really great that weren't nearly talked about as well, like Honeylands, Shadow. I guess Rocket Man was pretty popular. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, John Wick 3, Klaus. Yeah, there were some really good movies that came out in 2019, and
Mhm.
also Joker. No, I mean, I apologize to Joker fans. I think it's a good movie, just definitely overrated for sure. But yeah, no, I think
I agree.
2019 was a pretty phenomenal year for cinema. I don't know if it's like my favorite, but I think that for me personally, I think that it's definitely a contender for favorite year. So to those of you who are listening, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna talk about just what our favorite years of cinema were, what year of cinema in which like our favorite movies were released from, and then at the end we'll decide what our definitive favorite year for movies overall is. But for now, I just thought I'd bring up 2019, which for me is like a very, like a lot of these movies are very, since these movies just came out, they're very, still fresh in my memory. And
You have a
a lot of these
recency
are movies,
bias.
yeah, and a lot of these are movies that will I definitely will revisit and watch over and over again. And a couple of them I even own on physical DVD now.
Mhm.
And what's a year where there were just a lot of movies came out, or some really memorable movies for you that came out in the same year?
Well, since you're going by most recent, I can do that as well. And I will go just a few more years back and say 2017.
Yes, definitely.
Was that on your list?
I don't really have a list. I'm just kind of reading off of my Letterboxd account, just looking through the movies that I've seen and just seeing which year they came from. But Yeah,
Oh
why
yeah,
don't you go ahead and talk about just 2017 for cinema and how great that was?
yeah. So looking at my own list as well, Lady Bird came out, which was an interesting movie. At first, when I saw it, I liked it, didn't love it, and then I watched it another time, and I understood it better. I liked it a lot more. And then I just ended up watching it several times, and now I love it. Logan, War of the Planet of the Apes, which is a great ending to that Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Yes.
You had the first Tom Holland full Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Homecoming. We had First Reformed, Wonder Woman, which I loved. Coco was amazing. Happy Death Day, personally. And I also think the movie Gifted with Chris Evans is a really good movie. Shape of Water came out that year. Disaster Artist. Some other not as well known, but still pretty good movies in my opinion. Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool with Annette Bening and Jamie Bell. And Hostels with Christian Bale and Wes Studi. Great movie. And yeah, I just think that was a pretty good year. Looking at the movies that I've seen that year that came out, I'm like, yeah, like that, like that, like that. Great ones.
Yeah. I think that 2017 was a really good year for, debuts. Like you mentioned, Lady Bird, that Greta Gerwig's film debut. There was also
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Peele's debut, Get Out. There
True. Yeah.
were there were really great franchise films, like you said, Logan, War for Planet of the Apes. I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok and
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 and Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I know, but I don't care. I love that movie.
That's
Uh,
fine.
2017 was also a pretty good year for documentaries too.
Mm-hmm.
There are three documentaries that I saw that I really loved. Let It Fall and LA 92 both addressed the LA riots, and
Oh, okay.
Accidental Courtesy is a documentary about famous jazz musician Daryl Davis, who actually actively seeks out to be friends. Daryl Davis is a black man and a famous jazz musician who
Mm-hmm.
actively tries to make friends and converts members of the Ku Klux Klan and
Oh, wow.
try to get them to not be racist anymore, basically.
Wow.
And all three of these movies, deal with racism in America, but like two of them are very dark and somber in tone. LA
Mm-hmm.
92 and Let It Fall are very, are very serious and depressing. And Accidental Courtesy does get very serious at times, but it's a bit more encouraging and positive in its outlook of America.
Cool. I'll check those out.
Yeah, there were some really good documentaries that came out in 2019 as well, but 2017 for me I feel like is a bit more underrated in terms of documentaries.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But yeah, I think that 2017 was a pretty good year for film. And I'll mention another recent year, 2014. Man, that was a really good year for movie. One of my favorite movies of all time, Whiplash, came out that year, which quite a few of my friends don't like that movie actually, and I don't really understand why. I think it's amazing. I love Birdman, Nightcrawler, the Lego Movie, Grand Budapest Hotel, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and the second, I do actually enjoy the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and that came out in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
But 2014, I think, is another like really good year for movies. The
Mm-hmm.
Babadook was really effective and terrifying. I think that that's another like really good year for movies, and I think that in terms of like this decade, or last decade, because it's now a different decade, 2021.
Right.
But I think that 2014, 2010, and 2019 were like the best years for movies of the decade overall.
Yeah, I can agree with 2014. Did I interrupt you? Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was just gonna ask you if you had just another year in mind, like another year that where a lot of movies came out that just really impressed you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll piggyback off of 2014 and just say mention a few other movies that I liked in 2014. You had this one is kind of cheating because it came out in its native country, the UK, in 2014, but I think it was a 2015 US release. Kingsman: The Secret Service. That's one of my favorite movies. X-Men Days of Future Past came
Right.
out in 2014. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh
Um,
yeah, What We Do in the Shadows. That was so good too.
yeah, Paddington, Gone
Yes.
Girl, Ex Machina, first John Wick movie for those of you John Wick fans.
Right, right.
So yeah, I definitely agree on 2014. Got some really good ones in there.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that 2016 was a pretty good year for movies, like Moonlight and La La Land came out that year, and that whole like Best Picture fiasco.
Yeah.
But I want to go even further back and mention a year in movies that like a lot of really good gems came out this year, but I feel like already people have like forgotten about it, and I think that
Okay.
that's a shame. And I want to talk about the year 2000,
Okay.
and which it's kind of crazy to believe that in before prior to the year 2000, like in the 90s, like there were a lot of people that genuinely thought that the world was going to end by like December 31st, 1999. It's
Yeah.
crazy to believe that people like genuinely thought that, like even like especially in Korea, people are going around like, oh man, is the world's going to end by the year 2000? And that's like absolutely like crazy to believe. It just seems ridiculous to us now, but back then, like this
Yeah.
was genuinely what people believed. But I think that the year 2000s, there were some really great gems that came out, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Castaway, Almost Famous, Billy Elliot, Traffic, American Psycho, Unbreakable, Emperor's New Groove, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And Remember the Titans are films that I really, really enjoy a lot.
Wow. We were talking earlier about like recency bias, and yeah, I guess that's applying here for me because the ones you just listed, I've only seen like three of them.
Honestly, I even kind of forgot about this year. Like when I'm thinking about like favorite movies and stuff, like if I see like an older movie, I'm not really thinking about the year in which it came out. And it was only when I was preparing for this podcast, when I was looking
Mhm.
at, the movies and specifically when they came out, that I was like, oh shoot, like 2000 brought us some really good movies and some of my favorites of all
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Do you have another year where a lot of movies came out that like you really enjoyed?
I'll go back. I'm gonna skip the 90s uh, and go to 1989.
Ooh, nice.
I think 89 was pretty good. One of my favorite movies of all time, Dead Poet Society. You have The Little Mermaid, which I believe kicked off the Disney Renaissance of the, I guess technically late 80s, early 90s. Born on the 4th of July is probably, in my opinion, I haven't seen all of his like really well-known work, or not well-known, but like well-renowned work. But I think it's probably one of Tom Cruise's best performances, and he is actually very, very good in that movie.
Yeah.
You got When Harry Met Sally, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Driving Miss Daisy's pretty good, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Tim Burton's Batman, Heathers, Major League for baseball fans like me. Even Back to the Future Part 2, which I enjoy, I think is pretty good too. So that's my summary of 89.
Which I still haven't seen. I still have not seen Back to the Future in its entirety.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the first one I love. The first one, obviously, I've seen that, and I love that though.
Yeah.
But that movie, Back to the Future, came out in 1985, and that year there were some really other good movies that came out that were really good. Harrison Ford got his only Oscar nomination for being in Peter Weir's Witness, which is a really good
Mm-hmm.
movie. One of Martin Scorsese's most underrated movies, After Hours, came out. Also, Jackie Chan wrote, directed, and starred in Police Story, which is
Oh,
absolutely insane. Even if you haven't seen Police Story, you definitely should know about, or at least heard about, the infamous bit where he's trying to catch the bad guy in the mall, and then he slides down a pole. That's where all these lights are connected to it, and he actually slid down the pole with all the lights connected on and plugged into the wall, and he received third-degree burns on his hands and arms from sliding down the pole with all the lights attached to it. Brazil, Ron and the Breakfast Club also came out in 1985, and I think that's a pretty good year for films too.
Yeah, I don't have any other movies to add to that year. Maybe The Goonies, did you say that?
No, I didn't mention The Goonies because that's a film that I just think is good but not great.
Oh, okay.
But I
Yeah.
can see why some people consider that to be a classic. Do you have any other years in mind?
Yeah, so you went to 85, and I will stay in the 80s, but not before 85. I'm going to go forward a little bit to 1987, The Princess Bride, which is, of course, a
Yes.
classic.
Yes.
I personally really love Spaceballs. I think it's very funny. It's a good comedy movie, good spoof. The Lost Boys came out in 87. Running Man is pretty cool. Empire of the Sun is probably a lesser known Spielberg movie, but very, very good in my opinion.
Right.
Dirty Dancing is kind of a classic romance movie. And another movie that I didn't necessarily love, but I found very interesting is Wings of Desire from 1987.
Oh yeah, from Wim Wenders, I think, directed.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
He directed Paris, Texas, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. So 87, I think, had some pretty good ones.
You didn't like Wings of Desire that much?
I did. I didn't love it. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, oh my god, I need to see this immediately again. That's usually my barometer for if I loved the movies. If I absolutely want to go back into the theater, or in this case, put the DVD back in or whatever.
Yeah. I think Wings of Desire. I've only seen 2 of Wim Wenders' movies. I think Wings of Desire and Paris, Texas. Paris, Texas is absolutely phenomenal, but Wings of Desire, I did enjoy that one. That's probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10 movie for me. It's not like one of my favorites of all time, but I did really enjoy it. Another movie that I didn't technically enjoy from 1987 is Elaine May directed Mikey and Nicky, which stars Peter Falk and John Cassavetes. And it's basically about Mickey, who's a hardworking, honest man whose best friend is a con artist with a gambling addiction. And Peter Falk plays Mickey, and I keep trying to say Mikey, and I don't know why it's Mickey. Mickey, and Nicky is his best friend, played by the great John Cassavetes, and he ends up scamming the wrong people, and his life is threatened, and he kind of forces his friend Mickey to help him hide from these gangsters or whatever. And Nicky is such a selfish, arrogant a-hole. But Mickey is so nice that he helps Nicky, even though he really should be just saying to Nicky, you know what, you're on your own and find a new friend.
I don't think I've even heard of that.
Most people haven't. Yeah, most people haven't heard of that movie. But I think that it's if you can watch it, I think that people hate the movie solely based on how much they hate Nicky, because I hate Nicky so much. But he's so awful to Mickey. But I think that it's well made and well acted, but just it's a good movie technically, but just I don't know if I could watch. I can't watch it too many times because then my blood will boil from how angry I get at Nicky. But yeah, I just want to go back a little bit and should I stay in the 80s? Actually, you know what? I'll go back to the 70s. Yeah. So I'll go back to the 70s and way before. I think, way before either one of us was born. And I think that's, let's see here, which year should I pick? I'll go with 1971. 1971, I think, was every single film nominated for Best Picture was absolutely great. You have Harold and Maude, which is a weird movie, but a classic. You have The
Yeah.
French Connection. You have A Clockwork Orange. You have Fiddler on the Roof, and John Troll's Immigrants in New Lands, which are two separate movies. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is a good movie, but I can't watch it again because the infamous chicken cutting off the chicken's head scene in the tunnel, which was just ugh.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I think that was a really great year for cinema, 1971.
Oh yeah.
I've only seen like the good movies though from 1971, but that just suddenly came to mind when I
Yeah,
was thinking
71 is
about.
good because you got two, I don't think they were featured debuts, but you had very early films from Steven Spielberg, Duel,
Duel,
and
right, Duel, yeah.
this is full-length version of THX 1138 was also in 71. So that's kind of interesting that they both had their kind of big films in that year before their next, really, really big films.
Right, yeah,
Like
yeah.
Jaws in 75 or American Graffiti in 74, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, and how could I forget? Last Picture Show. The Last
Right.
Picture Show by Peter Bogdanovich, which stars Sybil Shepherd and Cloris Leachman and young Jeff Bridges. That was really good but sad movie.
Haven't seen it, but I know I need to.
Yeah, I think that 1971 was a pretty good year for movies. Do you have any other year for film in mind?
76 maybe. Rocky is a really, really, really good movie. I love Rocky. Taxi Driver, of course.
Yeah.
Carrie's a horror classic. Logan's Run is an interesting sci-fi movie that used to scare me a lot when I was a kid. And then you have the Barbara Streisand version of A Star Is Born. And that's all that I have from 76.
Let's not talk about the Barbara Streisand version of A Star Is Born.
My mom is a really big Barbara fan, so she, of course, loves it. So
Yeah, I'm not personally a big fan of the Barbara Streisand one, but
sure.
I mean, good for your mom, I guess. I want to talk about, go even further back and talk about 1957. Oh man,
Okay, you pull
1950s.
that up.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to pull it up and see what I have.
Oh man, yeah, 1957 for cinema was absolutely just beautiful. So,
Well, before you start, I'm just going to say I only have two. I have seen three from the year, but only two that I would like really, really highly recommend. So you can go ahead now.
okay, gotcha. All right, well, of course, the movie that won Best Picture for 1957 was Bridge on the River Kwai from David Lean.
Okay.
And yeah, that's a classic for obvious reasons. I do think David Lean, I like Lawrence of Arabia a little bit more, but Bridge on the River Kwai is a classic that does have some very good commentary on what it's like to like not just be a soldier in war, but also like duty versus honor. And I think that that film is really great. And but I think that
Okay.
another film that was nominated for Best Picture that year deserved it even more, and that's 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
12
That's
Angry Men is literally one of the objectively best movies of all time. Like, there's no competition. Like, I really like Bridge on the River Kwai, but 12 Angry Men is phenomenal. Literally one of the best screenplays of all time. Just even talking about it right now, I want to rewatch it. Like, as soon as we're done with the podcast, I might just, I have the DVD of 12 Angry Men on Criterion. I might just
nice.
grab it. I might just grab it and pop it into my laptop and watch it again because it's so good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the thing that I like about, well, one of the things I like about 12 Angry Men is that they were able to take the story and not just make this amazing film out of it, but it's written in a way that just with a few little minor tweaks, you can make it, they've done it as a stage play in modern times and just called it 12 Angry Jurors. And so it's like a universal thing, at least in the US, because I don't know if that would necessarily be as applicable in countries that don't have the same judicial system, for example. But across America, like it's not necessarily about, like men versus women or anything. Like you can have pretty much any cast and it still works.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is really cool about it.
Yeah, like I agree. Yeah, I think that you could do like, kind of you could have it be a commentary on anything really, race relations, gender
Yep.
relations,
Mhm.
like just and all that stuff. And yeah, I completely agree with you.
Mhm.
And also, what came out in 1957 is I haven't seen a lot of Ingrid Bergman's Swedish director Ingrid Bergman's films, but the one of the
Either.
few that I have seen is Seventh Seal, which features the famous scene of the man playing chess with death, which was parodied in the Bill and Ted sequel, Bogus Journey, where Bill and Ted are playing Battleship with death, which is absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah. Oh, you never heard of the famous chess scene from Seventh Seal?
No, I haven't.
Oh, wow. Well, even
Fail.
even if you haven't seen the movie, I'm surprised that you never heard of that chess scene.
Yeah, no, I've heard of the movie. I hadn't heard of the scene.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not that I can remember anyway.
I definitely want to see Seventh Seal was really good, and I want to see more Ingrid Bergman films for sure. Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory came out in 1957, and a lot of people love Paths of Glory, and I get why, but personally, I don't love it quite as much as other people do. People call it a classic, people call it Kubrick's best movie, and I don't know, just like I get why people like it. It's commentary on, like how war dehumanizes people is good and the filmmaking is great, but I just wasn't that captivated with the characters that much.
That's fair. I haven't seen Paths of Glory personally, but if we're gonna mention Stanley Kubrick, I haven't seen a lot of his films, period, to be honest. But a movie of his that I watched recently, that's from almost the same year. It's not 57, but 56. The Killing. I actually enjoyed that quite a bit.
I
And
haven't seen that one yet. It's good?
yeah, I was surprised. I actually had to watch it when I took I think it was probably film history that I took in college, and I had to watch it. And I didn't really like it when I was at college. I didn't dislike it, but I wasn't really that into it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I watched it again a few weeks ago because I've taken a look at some movies that I've rated over the years and said, you know what, I was too young to get that, or I just didn't pay attention enough to it the first time. So I'm gonna try to rewatch it and see if my opinion changed. That was one of them, and I ended up liking it a lot more. It was very interesting the way it was set up and seeing how it all goes down, and the ending is really good as well. So I recommend that one.
I do think that Stanley Kubrick really knows how to end his movies really well, and that's one of the more important aspects of filmmaking to me personally. Is I'm fine with the movie starting out kind of meh as long as it ends really strongly. And I think that Stanley Kubrick is like a master of, well, just a lot of filmmaking aspects, but especially when it comes to ending his movies. Even like Paths of Glory, I don't love the overall movie, but I love the way that he ended it. I won't
Okay.
say how,
Yeah, no,
but it's like,
no spoilers.
yeah, no, it's like it's a perfect ending, basically.
Okay.
And one last movie I'll mention from 1957. Well, this got a 1957 release in Japan, but I think in US it got a later release, but I'll still count it as 57. Throne of Blood from
Okay.
legendary Japanese director Akira Kurosawa, who's now become my favorite director of all time. Believe it or not, my favorite director of all time used to be Steven Spielberg, and
Yeah, that's a
but
good
that's
choice.
really because I'm sorry.
Steven Spielberg's a good choice too.
Yeah, well, but I think that's just because I like he's the director that I've seen the most work from in my
Sure. Yeah.
life.
Uh-huh.
But now that my taste in film has kind of changed over the years, and I've seen more of Kurosawa's work, I think he's now my favorite director of all time. I just love how he can turn a simple story into something so like grand and epic. And
Hmm.
Throne of Blood is actually his version of Macbeth from
Oh,
Shakespeare. And
okay.
the legendary Toshiro Mifune, who Akira has collaborated with on numerous films, he plays his benevolent lord of this country. And, well, no, sorry, not this country. He plays a general
Okay.
serving under the king of this, of some Japanese country, whatever. And,
Hmm.
just like in Macbeth, he's visited by a ghost who will tell him that he'll be king. And
Hmm.
then at first, and he doesn't believe it, but his wife, like, wants to take advantage of the situation and convinces him to kill the king. And yeah, I mean, if you've read you've read Macbeth, right? So you know how it
Yeah.
ends. Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
basically it's just Macbeth, but in Japanese, but it's filmed and told so well.
Okay. Cool. Cool. I'll have to watch it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you've read the play, since you've read the play Macbeth, you already know how the movie ends, but I still think that it's worth watching anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I like retellings. I don't. I have. I, as you know, from my
Yeah.
like of Disney remakes.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think yeah, you're definitely much kinder to the Disney remakes than I am for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I should check out more Kurosawa in general. But that one sounds like a good one to start with because it's the fact that it's a story that I know would probably make it a little more accessible, I guess.
Right.
Not that not that I don't think Kurosawa was inaccessible or anything, but it's just a good, starting off point, I feel like, what I mean to say.
A lot of like newcomers to film tend to kind of like save his movies for later because
Hmm.
like at least newcomers who are American. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
trying to accuse anybody of anything, but a lot of like American newcomers to movies are very hesitant to watch movies in subtitles, movies in black and white, long movies,
Yeah.
and I think
Hmm.
that I understand
Yeah.
why, but at the same time, it's like I don't think it's a big deal, but I think that that's just because I'm more used to watching movies in subtitles since, I'm not I mean,
Yeah.
I am American, but I'm also Asian, so I think that like I'm more comfortable with watching movies in, foreign
Right.
cinema.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll add one film to the 57 list. I don't know if you or anybody listening has seen A Face in the Crowd or even heard of it.
Yeah, Elia Kazan directed it, right?
Yes, yes, he did, and it stars Andy Griffith in
Yeah.
a role that's not quite, Andy Griffith.
It's
um,
very like serious, like dark role, right?
yeah, yeah, and definitely at least more so than the show he was on. It's basically, I haven't seen it since 2010, I think, so it's been a while since I saw it, so I might misremember some of the details. But the basic story is that he plays like I guess he's a grifter or something. He's like, he poses as a singer, and then he kind of like goes on the rise and becomes like really well known on the radio, and then it kind of like turns his world upside down for the negative. And
Mm,
it was just a very surprising movie when I saw it because I really only knew Andy Griffith from his show, and it was
right.
a different role for him, and I was like, oh wow, that was really good.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested in watching that movie for sure, but I just I haven't been able to watch it, and like I
So
just
many to
haven't gotten
watch.
around to it. Yeah, I definitely will. I definitely do want to watch it at some points, but just haven't gone around to it. But definitely at some points I
Sure.
will for sure. But yeah, I want to go forward in time and talk about uh, one of my same friend who loves M. Night Shyamalan. His
Hmm.
favorite year in movies is definitely 1999. And I agree that 1999 gave us a lot of great, great films. Most famously, The Matrix.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, The Matrix is, I mean, it's iconic. It's great. It's awesome.
Yes.
Seeing Keanu Reeves kick ass is awesome. And him saying, whoa, is whoa. But yeah, no, think that's a great film. But also great is Galaxy Quest, Fight Club, Toy Story 2, Sixth
Hmm.
Sense, Being John
Yeah.
Malkovich, Straight Story, Talented Mr. Ripley, 10 Things I Hate About You, and
Hmm.
Election.
Yeah. Okay, I can agree. Yeah. Those all good.
And of course, The Phantom Menace.
Yes. Yes. I
Which I
was
do not
going to
like
mention
The
that, or if I
Phantom
would.
Menace. I do not like The Phantom Menace, but I will acknowledge its place in pop culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course I had to mention that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering now, I'm thinking about it. I think my dad would probably say 99 was a really good year because he loves The Matrix and Phantom Menace. And until The Last Jedi came out, The Phantom Menace was actually my dad's favorite Star Wars movie.
Whoa, The Last Jedi is your dad's favorite Star Wars movie?
I think so. He
Wow.
said it was when he saw it the second time, and then obviously the Rise of Skywalker didn't change his opinion, or it didn't make him. He didn't like that one more. So I think if I called him right now and said, "Dad, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?" he would say either Phantom Menace or Last Jedi. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
he told me it's
because
because he identifies with Luke the Hermit or something. It's like, a grumpy old man. That's like me. So yeah.
interesting. That's really interesting because there's a lot of like older or like more hardcore. It's like usually the older, more hardcore fans that dislike The Last Jedi the most. So that's
Yeah, yeah,
interesting
yeah,
that your dad. Well, I mean, but then again, my dad is also a huge Star Wars fan, and he enjoyed The Last Jedi. He didn't like
yeah.
love. He didn't love. My dad didn't love it, but he thought that it was pretty good. The only Star Wars films that my dad like actively like hates is Attack of the Clones and Rise of Skywalker.
Nice.
He think my dad thinks that I think my dad just thinks that Phantom Menace is just okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, no, my dad like I think my dad's least favorite is Rise of Skywalker, and then after that, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be a pretty common sentiment.
But speaking of Star Wars, though, I think that 1977 brought us some pretty decent movies as well, besides Star Wars. I think we also got, let me just check here, we also got Eraserhead from David Lynch and
Hmm.
Annie Hall from, uh, do not mention his name, and Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the
Hmm.
original Suspiria.
Yes. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I think that 1977. There are definitely some other like really good movies that came out that year, I'm sure, but I just haven't seen them yet.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think that do you have like another year? Just we're just gonna mention just one more year each. So do you have just one more year that you want to mention that's just like really memorable to you?
Well, I'll say this, even though I haven't seen all of the really well-known movies from it, but you want to go really old school, you could say 1939. You
Oh yeah,
have
1939. Yeah, Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz.
Yes, yes, exactly. Those are the main, probably the biggest two that people would know of from that year. And then there's another one that I recently watched, which was another one of my rewatches of ones that I didn't like that I wanted to try again. A Western called Stagecoach, which was, I guess, John Wayne's, like, he had already been in movies, but that was kind of like his
Breakout role.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was another movie that I watched in college, didn't really like necessarily that much, and then I rewatched it recently and I liked it a lot better. It's a pretty good ensemble piece. It has some interesting things to say about morality and who, how to judge people or not judge people. And it's pretty short too. It does it a lot in a short amount of time. So I think it's pretty good. I can recommend that pretty easily. What else was in 39?
Oh wait, Stagecoach is a. Why did I get the impression that Stagecoach was like a really long movie?
I don't know, but it's only like an hour and a half, I think.
Really? Oh wow. I've kind of avoided it over the years because I'm not really that big into westerns, and I
Mhm.
thought it was like 2.5 or 3 hours long, but it's only an hour and a half. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I watched it just like I think last week or the week before, and it was on Prime, so it's somewhat easily accessible if you have Prime.
Yeah, 1939 was a pretty good year for films as well. Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier Goodbye, Mr. Chips and Young Mr. Lincoln, which is also from John Ford. I haven't seen either one of those, but I hear good things about them, and I definitely
Hmm.
will watch them at some point.
Yeah.
The one last year that I'll mention is 1967. In
Okay.
1967, In the Heat of the Night, starring Rod
Yes.
Steiger and Sidney Poitier, that
Yes.
won
Yes.
Best
Yes.
Picture, and that's a really great movie. But I also loved Bonnie and Clyde, In Cold
Hmm.
Blood, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which also stars Sidney Poitier.
Yes. To Sir with Love, another Sidney Poitier film from '67. So I guess '67 was just the year of Sidney Poitier.
Yeah. No, that was definitely a good year for him for sure because both those movies were nominated for Best Picture.
Hmm.
Um, but there are two movies that year that are absolutely iconic in my opinion. That like In the Heat of the Night is really good, but I love The Graduate even more with Dustin
Hmm.
Hoffman.
Uh-huh.
The Graduate, is absolutely iconic in my opinion,
Yeah.
and I love Cool Hands Luke
Okay.
with
Hmm.
Paul Newman. Cool Hands Luke is like legitimately like one of my favorite like movies of all time,
Yeah.
and it's not talked about enough in my opinion when people talk about like classics.
I haven't seen either of the ones you just mentioned, but I have heard those good things about them. And
Whoa,
they're-
you haven't seen The Graduate?
nope, I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Wow, that's like a really famous movie.
I know. Oh, I know.
All right, so well, I think those are all the movies that I mentioned and all the memorable years for me. I've seen great movies that have come out in other years, obviously, but just those overall years didn't impress me so much for cinema as a whole.
Yeah.
But I now want to ask you, if you can, and yeah, feel free to think about this as long as you need. What is, in your opinion, your favorite year, the best year for cinema?
Well, just based on data, for lack of a better word, on numbers, I have to say 2017 because I've seen the most, so I have the most ones to draw from. Maybe 89 is better, but I haven't seen as many, so I don't think it's fair for me to pick that or over one that I've seen more of. So I'll go with 2017.
Nice, very nice. Huh, I think I'm gonna go with 2014.
Nice.
I think I'm gonna go with 2014. Yeah, some other movies that came out that year that neither of us even mentioned was Snowpiercer, Captain
Hmm.
America: The Winter Soldier, Boyhood, Song of the Sea, Mommy, and I think
Hmm.
yeah, I mentioned Nightcrawler already.
Yeah. You
Edge of Tomorrow, Ida, Tale of the Princess Kaguya,
hmm.
Selma, Big Hero 6. Those are all really good. Interstellar. There are movies, of course, that came out in other years that I like more than the movies I've seen in 2014. But I just think that 2014 as a whole contains the most movies where would like to rewatch the most, and I remember the most fondly. And so, yeah, I think that 2014 for me is my favorite year for movies.
Okay. Cool.
I think that that'll wrap things up. So I want to thank you again for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for having me again. You still keep inviting me back. I'm doing something right.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, I don't mean this as an insult at all, but it is also because all my other friends are too busy. So yeah, but that's not. But I do genuinely love having you on the podcast, and I appreciate it a lot. You said
Thank
yes
you.
again.
I enjoy talking about movies, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all for listening to another episode of my podcast, Podcast Racing.
Now this is Podcast Racing.